Welcome to Tame the Taboo. This podcast is brought to you by Discover Health. Discover Health specializes in healthcare, education, and resources for her most intimate concerns. I'm your host, Nurse Jenna Ray. I'm a women's health and gender-related nurse practitioner, and I am making it my business to take you from sufferer to sensei. So if you are suffering from conditions that are not easily treated in an annual exam, or you want to join me on this journey to become my healthiest, wealthiest, best business owning self, sit back, relax, and enjoy these episodes. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited today. We have Reba the Diva, and Reba is a local sexologist here in Washington, D.C. She is just an all-around badass and one of my colleagues in the world of sexual medicine and sex wellness. And so I'm so excited to bring her to Tame the Taboo so that you all can hear her genius and really get a feel for what it is that she can do as a sexologist. So welcome to the podcast, Reba.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be here and to talk to you again. It's been a while since we caught up, although we did just see each other like a couple days ago.
Yeah. But before that, it had been a long while.
Had been a while, yeah.
So, okay, we'll recap our fun weekend that we had talking about sex, which was a great time. But tell the people who you are. Like, what's your introduction?
Sure, yeah. So my name is Reba. I go by Reba the Diva, and I am the CEO of a company called Sexpert Consultants, LLC. And we teach pleasure positive sex education workshops to adults. And we also train other aspiring, emerging, and established sexuality professionals to teach our curriculum and make a little money on the side. So that's what I do. I'm known for my oral sex classes, Blow His Mind Fellatio 101 and Cunnilingus, How to Eat Cake Cunnilingus 101. But we teach a bunch of other classes like couples workshops and sensual self-care workshops. Like we really are, I kind of look at my company as bridging the gap in adult sexual health education through a pleasure positive lens, right? Like when we think about what we learned in school about sex and about sex education, we learned about like how not to get pregnant, the like dangers and scary world of STIs and STDs. But we really didn't learn about like what is a clitoris, what is an orgasm, what is a prostate, how do penises work? Like we don't learn that stuff. And so that's the work that I've dedicated my life to doing.
I love it. And when I talk a little bit about my work at Discover Health, I like to say that I like to talk about sex in an unsexy way.
Well, mine is a little sexy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, how can I get you to feel better in your body so that you want to take it to the next level of like being sexy? So I'm kind of like on the foundation of like, if you have pain, let's take that away. And then let me ship you off to Reba so that you can like walk into your femininity and like really become sexy. Because I'm not sure how to do that.
Yes, I often find myself kind of in the reverse, right? Like people come to me for the sexy stuff, like, well, I'm gonna learn a blowjob class, but I really learned about my clitoris and that I like might have atrophy. And who do I go to for that? And I'm like, go see Jenna, because at the end of the day, like the conversation around pleasure is missing. And so you start the conversation that I like want to just platform, right? And it's so necessary. Like, okay, so I work with other folks who are adjacent to the sexuality space, like speech language professionals. And what I find is that like we're all pleasure professionals. I consider you a pleasure professional. And I also consider dentists and OTs and PTs. These are all pleasure professionals, right? And I think in the medical space, there's a deficit model, right? It's like, are you feeling this? Is this? Then you're fine. But like, we don't center pleasure. That's what I really want folks to do a little bit more is like, how do we center pleasure? And that's why I love the work that you do, because like you center like the experience, like your patient's experience. Are they enjoying themselves? Are they like, is this a good quality of life for them? Like, not are they experiencing symptoms? Like, no, it's beyond that. Like, how does this feel to the patient? And that's really important.
Super important. And one of my like little lines that I like to say is just because you're living doesn't mean that you're living, or just because you're not dying doesn't mean that you're living.
That
So when
part.
we talk about like quality of life, we really want you to enjoy sex. We want you to enjoy receiving and giving pleasure. And if you're in pain, you can't do that. So that's really awesome. One of the things you said is that a dentist is a pleasure professional. And that's so interesting because I talk a lot about the connection between the jaw and the pelvis. if you were to look at them, they look the same, right? As far as like being able to open and close, like your vocal cords and the vagina, they look very similar. And so lots of clients who have hypertonic pelvic floor dysfunction or too tight pelvic floor muscles, right? If you're quite literally a tight ass, then you might also have TMJ. And so many people miss this. So it's so connected. It's very interesting that you brought that up as an example.
Well, so I'm working with my colleague and dear friend, Dr. Ianessa Humbert. She's a world renowned swallowologist, if you will, but she has 3 degrees in the throat, right? She's a speech language pathologist, and she's got like all the degrees in that, right? And you're right. What we've noticed as a sexologist talking to a swallowologist, like there's so much similarities in the work that we do. Like I deal with the labia and she just deals with the labia, right? Like, and there's a bunch of other like just connections there that I think we're missing. And so one thing that we're trying to do is open the first swallowing wellness clinic to really explore the difference, like explore what's happening here and the connection between sexuality and like oral cavities. Right? Because you're right, there is so much difference. And is there like correlation? We don't know. We don't have the data. Swallowing Wellness Clinic could get that data for us,
Mhm.
right? So we are actively trying to figure out how do we bring more sexuality, more pleasure, less deficit model into this space. And yeah, that's cool. I want to talk to you a little bit more about that because I'm glad I'm not the only one that's seeing this connection. I think it's important.
Yeah, definitely. I watched The Little Mermaid, the new Little Mermaid that
Mhm.
came out. And of course, like she loses her voice in order to like turn into a human and have this connection with her partner. And I couldn't help but think like, is she having painful intercourse? Because now she can't talk and everything's like closed off and like her chakras are closed. It's probably closed in her root chakra too. So like she's gonna marry this man and it's gonna hurt. What? And my 3-year-old is sitting there just, like, watching in awe, was just loving The Little Mermaid, but the way that my mind works is I can't disconnect because I see it so clearly. I'm like, "No, she needs to open up her throat chakra and her root chakra will follow," and, like, nobody asked for those.
But that's such an interesting observation. And I think it is one that is very normal, right? Like we give up our voice to be in relationship, right? We give up our ability to say what we want, our desire, right? To be the good girl in relationship. And that's a lot of the unlearning that I do. Like when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is why so many of us are in my chair, right? Like this is why I have so many clients. It's because we lose our voices. And I
Mhm.
think part of the work that you and I do is giving back that voice, right? Like reconnecting to our bodies because when you lose your voice, you lose connection to your body too. Like we can't, how can we express what's going on? Like, did she learn sign language? Like, we need to figure this out. Now, concern, is Ariel okay? Is he okay?
And why was Eric so willing to just be like, "Oh, well, I don't
Well,
understand you at all, but you're beautiful," you know? And how many of us
yeah.
are in relationships where it's like, you don't have to say anything, you just gotta be a pretty face, and nah, that's canceled, that's over. We're not doing that no longer.
Thanks for ruining my favorite Disney movie, Jenna. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I really did love it, and hopefully, if you have not seen the remake of The Little Mermaid, this will be one more kinda nail. Kinda get you in there just so you can think about like, "Oh, okay, it's her. What is she losing? What is she truly giving up?"
Yeah, that's real though. That's so real. I was doing a session really quickly, just related. I was doing a session, a women's central self care session, like a 1-to-1 coaching session yesterday. And in it, the client showed up to the first session kind of nervous, like, I don't really know. I don't have like the words to say what I'm experiencing. And I was like, it's okay. Let me give you your voice. I felt like a fairy godmother in that moment.
You were. That is a lot of what you do. I love that. Oh my god. Whitney Houston who? We got I love that. So, okay, I was gonna ask more along the lines of you brought up, like, having this swallowing clinic. Like, how far into the process are you? Is this something that's definitely happening? Like, can people
Definitely.
sign up? Like
Definitely happening. We have investors. We are just looking for spaces now. And once we've settled on a space and kind of build it out, then it's looking like it's coming 2024, if not early 2025, but definitely coming. Yeah. Yeah. Swallowingwellness.com. If you're interested in learning more about the Swallowing Wellness Center, that'll be coming to the DC, Maryland, Virginia area really soon. But it's so necessary. Like right now, you have to go to a hospital or like a skilled nursing facility to get access to a SLP. And what I'm excited about is inside of the Swallowing Wellness Center, we're going to have the sexual health and wellness suite where we will have people like yourself, like sexual health and sexual medicine professionals do residencies. So like, let's say someone comes in with a swallowing problem, they find out that it's impacting their intimacy. They realize, oh, okay, I need to go see the sexual health and wellness suite. And then they have a cadre of professionals that they can choose from that we can refer them to, especially folks who are like in private practice and trying to grow their practice. So trying to
Cool.
help.
Like me.
Yeah, no, we definitely are going to talk because it all clicked to me when we started having this conversation. So, mhm.
Okay, so that's a major project that you're working on, but you told me about something that I'm personally excited about because I, as a mom, as a business owner, doing all these things, I never get to watch TV. And when I do, I make sure it is the trashiest TV ever. It has to be the trashiest TV. I need my mind to be numbed. And one of my favorites is 90 Day Fiance. So, like, tell me, Reba the Diva, what is your connection to 90 Day Fiance?
So there is a new show. What I can tell you is what's publicly available, right? And that is there's a new show, a spinoff of 90 Day Fiance called The Last Resort. And there are 5 couples from the 90 Day Fiancé franchise, big couples. I don't know if the cast has been named yet, so I'm not going to break my contract, right? But 5 big couples from the franchise go to like on a couples retreat with 3 therapists and me. And so we see if these 5 couples can kind of work out their differences at the resort or will they break up after the retreat. And so my role was as the sexpert sexuality coach. I taught a couple classes. I brought in a Kama Sutra specialist, and then I had a one-to-one couples coaching session. So people will really get to see what people like me do. And that's what I'm really excited about. And what they are not going to show, though, is how the therapists and I work together to kind of make sure that we touched all of the bases that these clients needed to be touched when it comes to sex education and intimacy, communication, and that kind of stuff.
I'm so excited. I cannot wait to watch. I hope that it is a hot mess. I look
And
forward.
I'll guarantee you that it is.
Great, great, great. Cannot wait to watch. My question to you is what does it feel like or what does it mean to you to be a Black woman in this space?
I think what it means to me is that it's very valuable, right? Like I think it's important that everybody shows up in this space who feels called to be in this space. It's not an easy space to be in. You have to be pretty brave to like make sexuality your profession, right? Especially like sex coaching, sex education, which isn't really like I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I don't have credentials behind my name, right? Like I could, but like I don't need that, right? I think what it means to me is that there are people who look like me in the space. I'll never forget the first I started teaching a blowjob class first. Like my fellatio workshop was the first thing that I taught. And I remember being in DC at Eastern Market and a few like white girls came into the space and they were like, "Hey, so where's the teacher?" And I was like, "It's me." And the same was true for like Black girls that came in. They were like, "Wow, I'm surprised that this class is being taught by a Black girl." And I'm like, "I know, but also how important is that, right? Like how much more relatable do you feel to me as a Black woman if I'm telling you, hey, this is what I do. This is what I've learned in the field. Let me teach you some things, girl. Let me also show you how to prioritize your pleasure." Like it's beyond important. And I think Black educators and Black folks in this community or in this space have really carved out community for ourselves too, right? Like I don't have a hard time finding my people, but I also think it's important for us to be in the larger spaces as well, right? Because I mean, there's so many Dr. Ruths and like people who don't look like us who've been heralded and like put, but like these are the people who are talking about sex and like, no, we're young and cute and fun and Black too. Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, and it's this big kind of notion that uh, specifically in the Black communities, we have to be conservative, right? Like you got to wear a slip and some pantyhose, and like we don't want to talk about sex, but there's a level of freedom, at least in the media, that white women are afforded. Like in thinking about the difference between like the Girls Gone Wild videos and like Freaknik, right?
Let's talk about it. Like, let's talk about freedom. Like, that's what it is. That's what it boils down to is freedom, right? But freedom is not a thing that you're given. It's not a destination to be reached, right? It is a practice. And I think that's what people don't understand. I'm writing a book right now called A Free Person's Guide to Sex. And in it, I talk about like the opening is like foundations of freedom. What does it mean to be freedom, to be free, right? And what does it mean to practice freedom as a, like, what is freedom as a practice of liberation? And one way that I practice freedom is by analyzing my triggers, right? Our triggers show us where we're not free, right? And so if I'm triggered by this girl walking down the street with a short skirt, what is that? Where is that? Because there's a place in my mind where I am not free. And that's where it is. Like freedom starts in the mind. And so if we, and I'm not going to read my whole book right now, but like this is what it is, right? And so if we can get free in our minds, then we can become free in our bodies too. And oh, that is an amazing practice to be free in your body, whatever that looks like. Like whether it's wearing your short skirt or twerking in the mirror as part of your like self-care practice, or you know, I don't know what that looks like for everyone, but I do know that like the more we connect to our bodies, the more we find freedom in our bodies, the more we practice freedom in our bodies, the more access to pleasure we have. Right?
And I am one who is like, I'm here to help free you from shame and pain, right? And so it's the same thing. If we are just letting things relax, we'll experience a great decrease in the amount of physical pain that we're experiencing. And so it is also connected, like being free in your sexuality creates space for you to be free in your body, to move freely, to move without pain. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I was going to say, we are very conservative, though, especially in the Black community. Like, I remember when I first came out, and because of the nature of the work that I was doing, and like, I hadn't spoken at the Smithsonian yet, and I hadn't like done talks at colleges and universities. So I was like, Oprah. Like, I wore like turtlenecks and like I was very closed and buttoned up.
I love that. You're like, let me show you how to throw that neck in a turtleneck.
Well, yes. See, this is how and it should be very sloppy, ladies. And like, and then I realized like that's a place where I wasn't free, right? Like this isn't something that I looked at my closet one day because a friend was like, let's go hang out like to the club. And I was like, okay. And I looked at my closet and I was like, I have nothing to wear. To wear a blazer and a mini skirt. Like, what is happening? What is this, 2007? Anyway. And in that moment, I was like, wow, I'm not free. I'm not free. Like this uniform that I'm wearing, I'm not free.
You brought up the point about twerking in the mirror, and it is so important to twerk because literally when you are moving your pelvis and moving your hips, like it brings in movement, right? And it allows blood flow. And blood flow is really the thing that we're after when we talk about pelvic pain and healing pelvic pain. If you cut off blood flow to any part of your body, you think about cutting off to your brain, you're going to be brain dead, right? So we are restricting when we are walking around like tight asses, right? Quite literally clenching our butts, clenching our vaginal muscles. We are quite literally cutting off the blood flow, cutting off the oxygen to that tissue. And one of the best things to do is just twerk. Just move your hips.
You know what? Arousals and erection are all about blood flow too, right? So our clitorises and penises all need blood flow to work. Like it is, you cannot get pleasure. You cannot reach orgasm without blood flow, right? So yes, yes, yes to all of that. Also, as people who live very stressful lives with high levels of cortisol, right? Just because of the nature of who we are, how we were born, the skin that we're in, right? One thing that twerking also does is it helps us to complete the stress cycle, right? And so we find ourselves in stress cycles, right? That fight or flight, freeze or fawn state. And that is what leads to chronic levels of stress and chronic levels of anxiety. But twerking, shaking, literally it is seen in animals. Like if a dog is afraid, right? It was just the 4th of July. My dog was scared. He was shaking all over the house, right? Because he had to complete a stress cycle. Twerking helps us complete our stress cycle. But you'll have people who are like, that's not appropriate. You're not free. Look how triggered you are by someone else's movements, by somebody else's body. Someone else's body is triggering things inside of you. Why is that?
They want to shake that ass, but they can't. This is how you tame the taboo. You encourage the girls to shake that ass, get free, let it go, reduce pain, start to access pleasure because we are born into our bodies and we deserve pleasure. God did not, look at you and design a clitoris for you to be restricted from using it, right?
No, no. And Janelle Monáe has a new album out called The Age of Pleasure. That thing is on repeat. Every song. There is not a skippable song for me because everyone has a message of pleasure. And I'm like, oh, this is so timely. Thank you for doing the work for us, right? Because help us celebrate, help usher us into this age where we do prioritize pleasure. Because one thing that I'm learning is like Adrienne Marie Brown talks about this a lot, but like in order for us to, I think there's a movement happening, right? The age of pleasure is a movement that is happening. And in order for us to do this movement work, it has to be pleasurable. We have to incorporate pleasure into this work so that we can be resilient, right? So that we can last and so that this movement can build and continue on. And so I just feel like I'm doing the right thing at the right time. I feel so called. And I want everyone else who feels called to do this work to be supported. Come do this work. Let us help support you because we need you. People need you. This world needs you. If more people have better orgasms, people will live happier lives and make better decisions and the world will be a better place. So like we are changing the world one orgasm at a time.
Oh my God. Okay. I don't think it gets much better than that. I think that's where we got to end it today, Reba. This is wonderful. I'm so happy that the folks got to see the conversations that we have between each other. And so this is just a glimpse of what's happening in our world. And so thank you so much for joining me and helping me tame the taboo today. Can't wait to get this episode out. This has been such a blast.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Always pleasure. Always a pleasure. Okay. We'll see you on the next episode of Tame the Taboo.
That was great. Thank you.
That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tame the Taboo. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Send this to your girlfriend so they can join you on your journey as we transition to our healthiest, wealthiest, best selves. See you in the next episode.